had the identify 2 and 13, so let's go ahead and let's go over that first. Alright, number 2, the 3 main divisions of the body. Remember, that's the head, that's the trunk, and the appendages. Alright, number 13, the 4 categories of bones by shape. Long bones, short bones, flat bones, or regular bones. Alright, you had to explain 1, 5, and 9. So number 1, list in order the main types of blood vessels, beginning with those that carry blood away from the heart. So we're going away from the heart first. Alright, arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, veins. Now this was not part of the homework. What's the largest artery in your body? Aorta. What's the largest vein? Vena cava, or vena cava or vena cava if you're talking about just one part of it. Alright, you had on number 5, explain the function of the 3 types of lymphocytes discussed in the text. Remember, lymphocytes specifically are those types of white blood cells. So B cells produce antibodies that attach to the pathogens to mark the invader and become memory cells after invasion. Helper T cells activate the B cells, and killer T cells destroy infected cells to eliminate the intruder. Alright, number 9, which of the 4 main tissue types include blood, bone tissue, and adipose tissue? Hopefully you found out, okay, that has to be connective tissue. And then number 6, on the apply section, what substance would a person most likely have trouble regulating the blood concentration of if his parathyroid glands were not working correctly? Remember, what do the parathyroids do? What do they help regulate? Calcium in the blood. They work with the thyroid gland. Alright, you can go ahead and put away your homework, and let's go ahead and let's take out our activity book. You'll notice we're almost done with the activities for this section. So go ahead and flip over to page number 19 on the inside. It's activity 3E. So it's this one. We haven't done this crossword search yet. So for this one on page 19, so particular parts, this is all over chapter 3. So it's not just one particular section. We were focusing on reviewing some of the different particular sections of the chapter 3 or your different body systems. This is over the entire body as we've talked about it so far. So hopefully this will only take you about 5 to 10 minutes, because hopefully you should recognize, okay, I know what all these parts are, we've been talking about them, I've got this, I can do this. So go ahead and work on that though for about 5 to 10 minutes. So go ahead and pause the video and then come back whenever you're done. Alright, assuming that you're still watching this, I'm going to assume that you already finished it. So like how we did yesterday, I'm going to do all the across, and then I'm going to do all of the down ones. So going across first, organ that pumps the blood, that's the heart. Number 3, gland that regulates the body's metabolism, remember the thyroid. Number 4, organ that allows lymphocytes to grow and mature, that's thymus. The upper arm bone, that's the humerus. Number 9, bean-shaped organs that remove liquid waste from the blood, that's the kidneys. The voice box is the larynx. 11 is the largest part of the brain, that's the cerebrum. The organ that produces bile, that is the liver. Number 18, the organ that stores and mixes food, that's the stomach. Brown pigment in the epidermis, that's the melanin. Dome-shaped muscle used for breathing, that's diaphragm. And the organ secreting the glands, that's organ containing the glands that secretes insulin and glucagon. Remember, the glands are the islets of Langerhans, but they're in the pancreas, so pancreas is the answer. Alright, going down now. So structure number 2, structures that attach bones to muscles. Tendons, hopefully you know the difference between tendons and ligaments by this point. Largest lymphatic organ, that's the spleen. Part of the skull that surrounds the brain, that is the cranium. Tubes that connect the kidneys to the bladder, that is the ureters. Tube that transports food to the stomach, that's the esophagus. The holding tank that is for liquid waste, that's your bladder. And the vessels that carry blood to the heart, that's the veins. And then the upper chambers of the heart, that is atrium. That's specifically the singular version of it. Alright, last activity. So, systematic survey. This one should only take you maybe 2 to 3 minutes. It shouldn't take you that long to do this one. So use the clues to complete the puzzle and answer the following question. Then ask you this question: what is the first body system to develop in an unborn baby? So you fill in all the systems so that way you can use it to figure it out. So if this will only take you maybe 2 to 3 minutes tops, you should know all your systems and what they do by this point. So go ahead and pause the video and then come back whenever that's done. Alright, so number one, portion of the immune system that circulates certain fluids to fight infection and disease. That's the lymphatic system. System that breaks down and absorbs nutrients for the body to use energy. That's the digestive system. System that produces the movements of the body. Muscular system. System that transports nutrients, waste, respiratory gases, and other materials throughout the body. Cardiovascular system. System that covers and protects the body. Integumentary system. System that supports the body and supports the vital organs. Skeletal system. System that exchanges oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air and the blood. That is respiratory. System that coordinates, number 8. System responsible for producing new human beings. Reproduction. 9. Systems that coordinates body functions and activities. That is the nervous system. And then number 10, the system that uses hormones to control certain internal body functions. Endocrine system. And then the system that concentrates and removes liquid waste from the body, that is the urinary system. Alright, now remember, as a side note, urinary system is part of what larger system? So what's the system that just removes waste from the body in general? Excretory system, good. And the lymphatic system is part of what larger system that fights off disease? The immune system. Perfect. Alright, you can go ahead and take out a piece of paper so we can write down terms and definitions you don't know as we get ready for your exam on Friday. So again, if you want to follow along in your book, that's fine. Or if you want to take out a piece of paper, write a line at the top so you'll know, okay, what review are we on as we're going through this section. Alright, so thinking back over it, we left off on page 46. If you want to flip over there, you can, so you can mark it in your book as we're going through them, so you'll know what's the important things you should be marking. Thinking back over some of the harder things we talked about yesterday, or reviewed yesterday, what is the science of classification? Taxonomy, that's it. What do we call the early growth of a seed? Germination, that's it. What's the branch of biology that studies the relationships between organisms and the environment? Ecology. What term refers to the methodical testing of a scientific idea? What do we call that testing process? Experimentation. Good. Alright, and then, alright, that's pretty much, those are some of the harder things we talked about yesterday. I just wanted to double check. So on page 46 is where we left off talking about your plant family. So again, same thing as kind of like we did yesterday. I'm going to ask a question, pause for a second or two to try to think of or say the answer out loud, and then either mark the term in your book or write it down so you'll have a nice sheet to study so you'll know what should you be studying for your exam coming up on Friday. Alright, what's the scientific term for a flowering plant? Angiosperm. Alright, talking about the different types of plant families. What is the plant family whose flowers consist of the disc and ray flowers? Who has those flower heads? Composite family, good job. What do you call the flowers in the center of their head? The disc. What do you call the flowers that surround them? Rays, perfect. So if you're looking at a drawing of one, the disc flowers are in the center, and the rays are the ones coming off of it. Alright, so disc and ray flowers. What's an example of the composite flowers? Dandelions, sunflowers, those are fine for it. Alright, let's see. What is the plant that was confused? Let's see. What is the plant that resembles the goldenrod and it is the cause of actual allergies? Ragweed. Good job. Let's see if there's anything else in that section. Don't think so. Alright, what is what is the plant family that's also known as the legumes, and they're important for putting nitrogen back into the soil? The pea family, good job. What's an example of them? Alright, so peanuts, sweet pea, make a note for those. Alright, what is the plant family that has flowers of 5 white, pink, or rose-colored petals that form a cup-shaped blossom, but they have woody stems? What do we call what do you call that type of plant family? The rose family. Good job. Alright, what's an example of the rose family? Alright, so for them, roses, strawberries, pears, plums, apples, all those are examples of it. Alright, what's the other one that's very similar? It also has cup-shaped blossoms, but these are herbaceous. They also have leaves in that crow's foot pattern, so they have leaves that are divided into 3 main sections. So what do we call that family? Buttercup family, good. What do you call the family that has square and stout stems, and they have flower clustered to form spikes, and they typically have a distinctive odor? The mint family, perfect. What's an example of mint? Of the mint family? Spearmint, peppermint, catnip, all those are examples of it. Alright, what family is known for having beautiful trumpet-shaped flowers? Honeysuckle family, good. So make a note of the honeysuckles. Let's see, what do we call, I don't think it's on this page, but what do you call the sweet liquid that's on the inside of honeysuckles and other flowers to help attract pollinators? Nectar, good. Alright, what do we call that flower shape whenever it has like an upside down umbrella, where the flower cluster goes up and out, where it makes kind of like where it kind of makes an upside down umbrella? What do we call that flower shape? An umbel, good. What would be a family that has that shape? Parsley or milkweed, but parsley was the one I was looking for. What's an example of the parsley family? Queen Anne's lace. Let's see, Queen Anne's lace, parsley, celery, parsnips. So just make a note for those. Let's see, I think that was it for those. Alright, what is the example, let's see, what is the family that has the nectar horns, that special flower design? Milkweed family, and then of course milkweeds are the examples for it. Let's see. What's the difference? Alright, you gotta know the differences between monocot and dicot. So if you have a monocot, what's the characteristics of them? So start listing them off. Remember, there's 4 major differences. Monocot has 1 cotyledon, petals and multiples of 3, fibrous root system, and parallel veins. Alright, dicots. What's the characteristic of a dicot? 2 cotyledons, branching vein patterns, you have petals and multiples of 4 or 5, and you have a taproot system. Perfect. Alright, lily family. A lily family, make a note, that's a monocot, and they typically grow from bulbs, and they have those tepals. Make a note of the lily family. And then lilies is an example of them. Alright, what is the structure made of? Layers of thick, fleshy leaves surrounded by a very short stem. That's a bulb. Whoops, good job. Alright, what is the example of the family? What family is it that is also a monocot, but their species can grow from bulbs, corms, and rhizomes? That's the amaryllis, so make a note for those. Alright, what is a corm? An underground stem that grows vertically. Remember, it's a thick, kind of squatty looking stem. And then what is a rhizome? This is an underground stem that grows horizontally. So they grow across, but they're underneath the ground. Alright, what is, let's see, oh, what's special about the ovary of an amaryllis that makes them separate from lilies? Right, it's inferior. Remember, a lily has a superior ovary, while the amaryllis family, their ovaries are inferior. What's an example of the amaryllis family? Daffodils, good job. Alright, so what is the most important family? The grass family. What do you call the place where the leaf attaches to the stem? The node. What do you call the creeping stem that grows along the ground? So it grows horizontally, but this one's above the ground, not under the ground. Stolon, perfect. Alright, what do you call the grass fruits? Grains, perfect. Let's see. What do you call the flower clusters that the grass can have? It could have a spike, it could have a raceme, or it could have compound racemes. Just make a note for those. Alright, that's pretty much it for plant family. Alright, looking at leaf arrangement. What do you call the leaf stalk that attaches the leaf to the main branch? I'm going to have to start drawing for these. So what do you call the leaf stalk? Petiole, good job. What do you call a leaf that doesn't have a petiole? Attaches directly to the stem. Sessile, good. Alright, different types of leaf arrangement. So, if it's going up the stem and it has 1 leaf per node, what do you call this type of arrangement? Alternate. What if it's 2 leaves per node? So it's 1 on each side. Opposite. And then what is it if you have more than 3, oops, that's a really bad one. More than 3 leaves per node? World. And then what's the last one where if you have a plant and all the leaves are clustered at the bottom? What do you call that one? Rosette. Perfect. Alright, so make sure that you know those 4 different types of leaf arrangements. What do you call a leaf that has more than 1 blade per petiole? Compound leaf. What if it only has 1 blade per petiole? Simple leaf. Alright, looking at the leaf edges, what do you call this type of leaf edge where it's smooth on the outside? Entire. What if it's jagged? What type of leaf pattern is that? Okay, I make my daggers a little bit lighter. What do you call this type? Tooth. Although mine looks kind of more like the last one. What do you call the one like this? That's a bad looking leaf. What do you call this type of one where it has the larger tubes? You will think of it that way. It's like your ear. Lobed. Good job. So lobed, tooth, and smooth. Alright, what type of venation is it? Remember, do you make a note of what leaf margins are? That's the edges, use that term. Alright, so the leaf venation or the vein patterns, what type of vein pattern is it like this? Whenever it has that one central line, but a bunch of lines coming off of it. So it's like a feather. Pinnate. What do you call, that's a really ugly leaf. What do you call this type of leaf pattern? Where they all come from like the sense where it has one main vein going up to the leaf, and then they all come off in that one area. Palmate. And then what do you call that last type where it's a bunch of veins next to each other? Parallel. Good job for all of that. Alright, what do you call the process by which plant makes its food? Photosynthesis, good job. What do you call the little organelles, the tiny structures on the inside that actually carry on photosynthesis? They actually make the sugar. Chloroplast. What do you call the what do you call the green pigment on the inside of the chloroplast? Chlorophyll, good job. What's the sugar that they make? Glucose, perfect. What do you call the process then whenever your body takes the glucose and makes energy or ATP from it? Alright, that is cellular respiration. So that's a mouthful, so make it up for that one. So cellular respiration to produce energy, and then it makes carbon dioxide and water. Alright, which one can occur only during the day? Photosynthesis or cellular respiration? Photosynthesis. Good job. Alright, what do you call, let's see, a structure, a type of plant, put it that way, a type of plant that has a long, thin stem that grows along the ground or has tendrils that twine around a wall or other support structure. It can be woody or herbaceous. A vine. Alright, 2 different types of root systems. What type of root system is it whenever it has one main root and a bunch of smaller roots coming off of it? That's taproot. What's the other type of root system where it's like matted hair all at the bottom? Fibrous root system. What's the type of plant reproduction that does not involve flowers, fruits, or seeds? So where you can just cut off a piece of it and then typically you can replant that. Or maybe you use runners. Vegetative reproduction. Good job. Alright, looking at the root. What do you call a cone-shaped root? Oops, I almost said, what do you call the cone-shaped structure that protects the new cells in the root? It's like a helmet. Root cap. What do you call the growth in length? So getting taller or longer. Primary growth. What do you call growth in width? Secondary growth. Perfect. What do you call the inner portion of the root that consists of the storage cells surrounding the root's transport system? So what do you call it that's surrounding it? The cortex. And then what is the extra layer in the woody dicots? That they have an additional layer of cells that can carry on cell division to grow in width, and it's closer towards the center, so it's more around the vascular tissue. Secondary growth. Alright, what do we call, let's see, what do you call called the process by which water and dissolved chemicals are absorbed through the membranes of the root hairs. So what do we call that process whenever they absorb water and nutrients? It's the process of water moving from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. Osmosis, perfect. Alright, there's two types of vascular tissue on the inside of a plant. One goes up, one goes down. So remember, they don't have arteries and veins, so what do they have to transport the nutrients up and down on the inside of the plant? What goes up? Xylem. What flows down? Phloem. Perfect. Alright, there are, let's see, 3 major things that help the water to rise on the inside of the plant, because remember, they don't have hearts to pump it. So what's the upward force that results as water enters the roots by osmosis? What do you call that? Upward pressure. Root pressure. What do you call the tendency of water molecules to want to shimmy up the sides of the small spaces on the inside of tubes? Capillarity or capillary actions. Make note the tendency of water molecules to move up through a tiny space. And then what's the last part? That's the primary force that raises water in the xylem comes from the leaves and buds. So as the leaves and buds are losing water, because they want to pool or they're getting thirsty and want to bring water up to them. What do we call that process? Transpiration. Remember, for us, perspiration is sweating, so it's kind of like the same thing, but it's transpiration. It's evaporation from the leaves. Alright, last major section. So talking about plants without flowers. What do you call a plant? What do you call a plant that reproduces without flowers? They still make seeds though. So those are called gymnosperms. Remember angiosperms? That they have flowers. Gymnosperms, they make seeds, but they make them more of pine cones. What do you call plants that have vascular systems? So like a gymnosperm, like a gymnosperm, angiosperm, and then the non-seed plants. So they all have a vascular system. What do we call those? Tracheophytes. Great. Alright, so what would be an example for a plant that doesn't use seeds? They use spores. Remember, spores are those one-cell reproductive structure. Make it up what a spore is. So, one-cell reproductive structure. What's an example for those? There's 3 of them we talked about. So remember, you have ferns, horsetails, and club mosses. Make a note for those 3. Alright, a bryophyte is a plant without a vascular system. There are 2 of them. What are the 2 types of bryophytes we talked about? They don't have xylem and phloem on the inside. Mosses and liverworts. Those are the 2. Alright, that's pretty much it for chapter 2. So hopefully you have a good long list of notes. So I'm going to go through chapter 3 and then I'll let you stop. But make sure that you're keeping up and that you're following your book or that you're writing down good notes. Alright, so there are 3 main parts to your body. What are they? This is part of your homework. Head, trunk, appendages. Make sure your head control. Make sure you know your head controls your brain, contains your brain. Your trunk contains your body's vital organs, and your appendages are your arms and your legs. Alright, so what do you call the smallest living unit in the body? Cell. What do you call a group of cells working together to perform a particular function? That is a tissue. What do you call a group of tissue specifically arranged to perform a definite function or functions? What do you call a group of, and then that is an organ. What do you call a group of organs that function together as a unit to perform a definite job for the body? That is a system. And then what is a network of systems? Body. Perfect. Alright, body systems and their functions. What system transports nutrients, waste, respiratory gases, and other materials? Cardiovascular system. What provides oxygen to the blood and removes carbon dioxide from it? Respiratory system. What breaks down and absorbs nutrients? Digestive system. What concentrates and removes liquid waste? Urinary system. What system transports lymph, protects the body against infection? Lymphatic system, and that's part of the immune system. What covers and protects the body? The integumentary system. What system supports the body, provides protection from muscles, protects vital organs? That is the skeletal system. What is the system that moves body parts? Muscular system. What's the system that controls body functions and activities? Nervous system. What is the system that controls certain internal body functions of hormones? Endocrine system. And then lastly, what system forms reproductive cells? Reproductive system. Make sure you know all the different systems and that you know which one does what. Alright. Thinking about your heart. Make sure I didn't skip one over there. No, I don't think I did. Alright, so thinking about your heart and your blood, what system is that part of? Cardiovascular system. What do you call the straw-colored liquid portion of your blood? Plasma. What do you call the cells that transport oxygen to other parts of your body? Red blood cells. What's that special protein that allows them to transport it? Gives the red blood cells a red color. Hemoglobin. What do you call the small cells that, what do you call the cell pieces that form clots and seal up cuts? Platelets. What do you call the large blood vessels in your body? Arteries. What do you call the smaller arteries? I said just large blood vessels. Large blood vessels that carry blood away from your heart. Arteries. What do you call the smaller arteries? Arterioles. What do you call the smallest type of blood vessels? This is where diffusion actually occurs between your cells and your red blood cell. Capillaries. Alright, what do you call the veins? What do you call the vessels that bring blood back to your heart? Veins. What do you call the smaller version of the veins? Venules. Good. Alright, thinking about your heart. What do you call the upper chambers of your heart? Atria or atrium. What do you call the lower chambers of your heart? Ventricles. What chamber does the blood enter first into your heart? So remember, whenever you look at a person, looking at their right and left side. So which chamber does the blood enter into first? Right atrium. Where does it go next? Right ventricle. Good job. My ventricle is not down there as a side note. I just don't want to gesture in a small area. So where does it go next? Right ventricle. Then it goes to the lungs, comes back to your heart. Whenever it comes back to the heart, where does it go? Left atrium. Then where does it go? Left ventricle. And then it leads through that largest artery. What's that largest artery's name? Aorta. Perfect. Alright. What do we call that tough, slippery coating that surrounds and protects your heart? Pericardium, that's it. What do you call the muscle that divides your heart into right and left sides? So that muscular wall in your heart. The septum, perfect. Let's see. I think we covered everything on this section. Alright, what do you call the type of circulation from your heart to the lungs and back to your heart? Pulmonary circulation. What do you call the circulation throughout the rest of your body? Systemic circulation. What do you call the circulation that brings nutrients to the heart specifically? Coronary circulation. That's it. Alright, what do you call the system whose major function is to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide with your body's cells? The major function is to exchange oxygen from the air with carbon dioxide from the blood. Respiratory system. Alright, what do you call the back of your throat? Pharynx. What do you call your voice box? Trachea. I'm sorry, I'm thinking ahead of my next question. What do you call your voice box? Larynx. What do you call your windpipe? Trachea. Good job. Alright, so whenever you breathe air in, it goes through your nasal passages or it goes through your mouth first. It hits your pharynx, goes past goes through the opening in your trachea, the glottis, goes down your trachea into your bronchus. So make a note for those. Now what do we call the large sacs on the inside of your thoracic cavity that have the bronchi and the bronchus on the inside of them? Your lungs. Good job. So make a note though that you have your nasal cavity, it goes past your pharynx and the epiglottis and then your larynx. So remember, epiglottis, that's the covering that typically closes up the glottis and lets you need to breathe. So make a note for that. So it goes down into your trachea or your windpipe, it goes into your lungs, and then you have the bronchi or the bronchus on the inside of your lungs. What do you call the little bitty air sacs that actually have diffusion occur on the inside? Alveoli. Good job. What do you call the thin double membrane that surrounds the lungs? The pleura. Great. Alright, what do you call the dome-shaped muscle that helps you breathe? So it's the dome-shaped muscle in your thoracic cavity, right underneath the thoracic cavity. The diaphragm. That's it. Let's see. Alright, thinking about your digestive system. What do we call the tube that the food passes through in your digestive system? The alimentary canal. Alright, what are the three parts of your teeth if you're having a cavity form up whenever it's going through those layers? Alright, you have the, enamel, you have the dentin, and then you have the pulp. What do you call the top part of your tooth that you can see? Crown. What do you call the bottom portion of your tooth? Root. Good. Alright, what's the tube that connects your mouth to your stomach? Esophagus. Alright, remember epiglottis, that keeps the glottis closed so food is not enough in your trachea. Alright, what do you call the involuntary muscle contraction in your esophagus and in your intestines that pushes food along? Peristalsis. Alright, thinking about the parts of the small intestine. So remember there are three sections to it. What do you call that first part? Duodenum. What's the next part? Jejunum. What's the last part? Ileum. So make a note of the three parts of the small intestine. Alright, what do you call those microscopic tubes that absorb digested food through the surfaces? So it looks like finger-like projections. Villi. Good. Alright, so thinking about organs that aren't part of the alimentary canal, but they are part of your digestive system. What is the organ that's the largest internal organ, but it makes bile? That's the liver. What is the organ that stores bile? Gallbladder. And then what's the organ that makes pancreatic juice? It also contains enzymes to help digest food. Pancreas. Good job. Alright, once you have food leave the small intestine, where does it go? Towards the large intestine. There are two major parts of the large intestine. What are they? Colon's the first part, and then you have rectum at the last part. Alright, what's the system that removes waste from your bodies? What's that general system's name? Excretory system. What do you call the bean-shaped organs that help remove waste from your blood? So they have the compact system of very small tubes. Your kidneys. What is the system specifically that removes liquid insoluble waste products from the body? So it's part of the excretory system. The urinary system. What do you call the tubes that connect the kidneys to the bladder? Those are the ureters. Good job. And then, what do you call the fluid that surrounds and protects your cells? Tissue fluid. What's it called if it's in your lymph system in particular? Lymph. Perfect. Alright, what do we call the enlarged bundles of lymphatic tissue that clean the lymph? Lymph nodes. What is the system that circulates certain body fluids and protects your body from disease? Lymphatic system. Let's see. What are some of the lymphatic tissue in your throat area? Adenoids and your tonsils. Make a note for those. What's the largest lymphatic organ? The spleen. Perfect. What system is the lymphatic system part of? The immune system. Alright. There are two different types of white blood cells that we've talked about for it. So what is the major group that contains the neutrophils and the macrophages? So it contains the white blood cells, those two. What's that major group? Alright, phagocytes, good job, make a note for that. What's the other group then? Lymphocytes. Now remember there's three different types of lymphocytes we've talked about. What are they? B cells. Well, there's the B cells, there's the helper T cells, and the killer T cells. Which one produce the antibodies? These are the proteins that inactivate pathogens and mark them for destruction. Those are the B cells. Make a note. B cells, T cells, and helper T cells. Make a note for those. All three of those are the examples of a lymphocyte. Where do they get trained at? Where do they grow? If you're a lymphocyte in particular. In the thymus. So make a note though that the lymphocytes are an important group of white blood cells, includes the B cells, and they grow and mature in the thymus. So make a note for that. What do you call the ability of the body to resist invasion by a pathogen? Immunity. What do you call it whenever you've been exposed to the disease in some way, shape, or form, either by a vaccination or you caught it, and so your body remembers it? That's acquired immunity. What's the other one where you just don't get sick? innate immunities. Make a note of those too. Alright, let's see how far I can get in this section. I'm almost through, but I want to give you a little bit of time because I give you classwork. Alright, what do you call the system that covers and protects your body? Integumentary system. There are 3 layers to your integumentary system. What are they with your skin? So there's the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous. Remember, the epidermis is that top layer. Dermis is the middle layer that contains the nerve cells and some of your blood vessels, while that subcutaneous, that bottom layer, that's the layer that contains your adipose and your large blood vessels. Alright, what is the brown pigment in your skin? This is the most important pigment. Melanin. Perfect. Alright, what do you call the system that supports and protects your body? Skeletal system. Great. What do you call the portion of the inside of the bones that makes red blood cells? That is the marrow. Good. Alright, 4 different types of bones. I talked about these. What are they? Long, short, irregular, flat. Perfect. Alright, there are 2 divisions to your skeletal system. What are they? Axial and appendicular. Remember, axial is the center portion. Appendicular is your arms and shoulders and your hips and legs. Alright, thinking about your skeletal system. What do you call your lower jawbone? That's your mandible. What do you call your upper jaw area? Maxillae. What do you call the part of your skull that protects your brain? Cranium. What do you call your collarbone? Clavicle. What do you call your shoulder blade? Scapula. What do you call this bone in your body? The humerus. What do you call your fingers? Phalanges. What do you call your breastbone? Sternum. What do you call the bones that surround and protect your vital organs up in your chest area? So these. Ribs. What do you call, let's see, your backbone? So remember the spines and the nerves, but what do you call the bone part, the backbone? Vertebrae. We're talking about the individual bones or vertebral column. Alright, what is the hollow spaces in your skull, that light in your skull, and it provides spaces for your voice to resonate? Your sinuses. Let's see, did I skip anything? I don't think so. What do you call the fused bones in your hip area? Sacrum. What do you call the fused bones at the end that is your tailbone? That's the coccyx. So grab into it really quick. You can't see those very well. Alright, so just make a note. Sacrum, coccyx. So just make a note for those. I think I've talked about all the other bones with Ted already. So make a note. I've already talked about all of those. So clavicle, scapula, humerus, phalanges. Alright, what do you call your hip bones? Your pelvis. Good job. What do you call this bone? So it's the long bone, his hand's in the way. What do you call this bone? The femur. Good. Alright, what do you call your toes? Phalanges. I don't think I want to go too much further because I gave you some classwork, so I don't want to overwhelm you. So we'll finish talking about this tomorrow in the Zoom review. So we've covered almost everything, so make sure you are studying and staying on top of it. Don't forget your background paper is Monday, so focus on your exam, but don't forget the background paper is due Monday. Alright, your homework for tonight, the last little bit to get you started and to help you have a little bit of stuff to work on, so that way as you review tomorrow, you'll know what you're talking about. So on page 115, in the identify section, page 115, you're going to do 1 through 11 odd. So 1, 3, 5, 7, up through 11. So the identify section, 1 through 11 odd. Ask your parents to check their emails later. I'll send them the Zoom link in the email. So be sure to ask your parents to look for it later on today. So we'll Zoom tomorrow at our normal class time. Alright, you have a great day, and I will